everyone to our product orientation session for the Frontline Leaders in Construction micro-credential. It's really great to have you all here today as we give you some overview of this product. And I would like to start by acknowledging our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians on the lands that we're all on as we meet virtually. And I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. And I'm very grateful to be here today on the lands of the Dharawal people. So welcome everybody. It's good to have you here, and particularly Neha, if you're still on there, and Colin as well. Very excited to give you both an overview of the product. So I put together an agenda of what we could cover here today, and just really quick background of the product. At the end, if we have some time, we can look at our leadership pathway and how this product links into other leadership micro-credentials. We also want to look at the components of a micro-credential, and in particular, what are the components of the Frontline Leaders in Construction micro-credential, looking at a product overview of topic areas, the forum activities, the assessment overview, and the facilitator guide. So I'm going to start in PowerPoint so we can look at the big picture and the overall structure. Then I'm going to share my screen and we'll look at our SharePoint side, and we'll look at actually some of the resources so that we can really unpack them, and I can just provide you some guidance there. So just to introduce myself, if you haven't met me, I know Colin's, we've worked together, so it's really good to see you. And when we get to the assessment, Colin did the knowledge assessment, so he's already got a bit of a head start, I think, on this. And I'm a product specialist here in the IATC stream. So my role is about supporting our subject matter experts so that we provide really quality, contextualized, industry relevant subject matter expertise and content into our products. And I'm also looking at that educational quality piece around the products as well. And we do have product standards that we work to ensure the quality. So that's really about me. I've also got a background in leadership development. I have a level 1 and 2 coaching certification, and I do some coaching with leaders here at TAFE. So I'm very passionate about leadership development. So I am so excited that we are launching a leadership program that is specifically for construction leaders. So let's have a look at the components of the micro-credential. So we have e-learning topics, and we've got 4 e-learning topics, as well as some what we call unstructured learning. So when we design a micro-credential, we look for forum activities we can do, some self-directed activities, social learning. You know, in different programs, we might put people on projects that they can do together. For the frontline leaders one, there's going to be some forum activities that I'll show you. So that gets them actually thinking, embedding some of their learning and connecting with other students in the cohort. We also have facilitated and live sessions. So we've got some really structured facilitated sessions, and I'm going to show you the facilitator guide and the session plans. They relate to those e-learning topics, and also they embed the learning from the forum activities. Then what we build into micro-credentials is called it live sessions. So this is where you've got time to actually bring in guest speakers and do some of that co-delivery with industry partners. You can also run support sessions or some labs or deep dives, whatever we feel is relevant. And for this micro-credential, we are doing, I believe, support sessions and guest speakers. So that's really exciting as well. And then we have assessments. So we have a formative assessment, which is just assessing the students as they go along so they can get some feedback and check in how they're progressing with their learning. And what we're doing in this micro-credential, at the end of each learning topic, there's a knowledge check, and they have to answer all those questions to be able to move on and to the next topic. Then as a summative assessment, which is the final assessment, what we've actually designed is the knowledge assessment that I was referring to, Colin has developed. And that is a series of multiple choice questions completed in the open learning platform. And then we also have a project assessment that we'll have a look at as well. There's a couple of parts to that. So we've got different topic areas. So like I said, we've got 4 e-learning topics. And the first one is communicate with influence. So what this is built around is providing our students with some really foundational leadership skills. And how this all came about, sometime last year, early last year, there was some working group activity, lots of consultation and ideation and working out what are the needs in the industry. And leadership came up. It's a really big need in the industry. And then we started to look up, well, what are the different levels of leadership development that we need? And we came up with frontline leaders in construction, a good place to start. And then it was, well, what are the skills that we need to actually teach in that micro-credential? Hence, we landed at this. So this has all been endorsed through a working group. There's a lot of governance around how we build the products. So it is consultation with our university partner, Western Sydney University, and our industry partner, CPB. So we got these 4 topics, and they are communicate with influence, which is going to incorporate how you identify your purpose of your communication and how you listen, how you understand your audience, your written communication, and your presentation skills. Then we go into manage personal and professional development, which is a really good topic to have as someone who's beginning our leadership pathway and starting to learn those new skills. And there's an opportunity for them to look at their strengths and their weaknesses, and they complete a SWOT analysis. And hi, Carly. Nice to see you. Sneak in there. Welcome.
I'm going to sneak in and sneak out, but I'll be back again.
Oh, go for it. And then we've got time management, which I think is really important when you're looking at becoming a leader. And this program is targeted to those people that are on the cusp of a leadership role, looking to go in, or maybe that you will have some people that are just sort of stepping into a new role. So as you know, in leadership, you've got to then not only manage your own work, but you're responsible for the outputs of your team. So time management is critical as well. So that's a really good thing to develop as a leader and get your team to develop. Managing the stress of it all is really important as well. Then we look at establishing effective workplace relationships, which is another key fundamental aspect of your leadership at that frontline level. And you're looking at the team goals, the dynamics of the team, and how you get your team to work together. Then you've got understanding change. So change obviously is a big part of leadership. We work in a very dynamic environment, and it's like that in the construction industry. So there's going to be change coming through a lot of our leadership products. So as this is foundational, we're starting with change. So as a leader, how can you understand change and what it is? Well, what are the effects of change? And there are some tools that you can use to help you with that change. And building resilience. Key thing of influential leader is to be resilient, to be able to keep moving forward and take your team on that journey, and the growth mindset. So that's what's going to be involved in the e-learning topics. Okay, so are there any questions so far? Oh, good. Now, forum activities, and this is exciting as well because, you know, with online learning, there's a lot of taking in information, watching some videos, doing some activities, starting to learn. So having this as an unstructured learning activity is going to help the students to actually think a little bit more deeply about what they're learning, and also connect with other people to gain insights together around the topic areas. And then they're covered in the facilitation sessions as well. So that's a really nice way to scaffold the learning, so you can see how it all starts to fit together. So I'm going to send you this PowerPoint. So there's only a couple more slides, but it'll give you a quick reference to some of these. And these forum activities are built into the open learning platform. And the students will be guided each week in what activities they need to complete. So this will run in relation to the completion of the e-learning topics and then flow into the facilitated sessions. So you can see in week 1, the first forum activity to have to do is, what are the benefits of effective communication for the construction industry? As a part of your answer, provide an example from your own experience. So this is a pretty good question, because they're thinking about some of the learning from the e-learning topic, but then they've got to relate that to an example they have. So we're going to be sharing a lot of different examples. And then the second question is, how can you, as a frontline leader, develop your communication skills? In your answer, identify one step that you can action within the next week. So that's a pretty exciting question as well, because it's starting to think about what they need to do for their development, and we're getting them to commit to an action, which I think is a big part of leadership in itself, is actually owning your own development, is taking action on the things that you see. So you can see that's the flow. There's actually, we've got 2 forum activities for each learning topic. And you can see, like in the second one, week 2, question 1, how do you feel about receiving compliments? And you get to discuss your feelings by providing an example from your own work experience. So I think these are really good questions for opening up some rich dialogue and starting to tap into, how you feel and actually have the confidence to share that. So I think how you set this up in the facilitated sessions is going to be really important as well, to get people feel comfortable to actually open up in those forums. It's going to be a really valuable part of their learning. Is there any questions around the forum questions? All good?
Just one thing, Jenny.
Yeah.
Sorry, that week 3, how has the use of a Iraqi matrix helped? I take it then that they're actually using that, or is that something that we introduced earlier and then ask a question in week 3 of how it's making work?
Yeah, so that's going to be in the actual e-learning topics that will be covered in there. And then they'll get to reflect on that, how have they used it, and then it will be covered in the facilitated session as well. So we can have a look. We can have a look at that when we go into the resources as well. Any other questions? Good. Okay, so I'd encourage you to sort of have a read through that, particularly as you're working through. If you're looking at the e-learning content, you can sort of have a look at those in conjunction and see how that all flows together. Okay, so next we've got our assessment activities, and we will look at the templates very soon, so we can unpack this a little bit further. But as I said, we have those knowledge checks in each of the e-learning topics. They're multiple choice. I think there may even be some true or false questions in there. And then we've got a series of multiple choice questions which help assess the application of knowledge. So this is what we want to focus on, being the Applied Institute of Technology, is how they're applying that knowledge and applying their skills. So we have a project assessment, and that is about preparing a presentation, delivering a presentation, and developing a professional development plan. So I'll show you that in a moment, and then that should be able to answer some questions that might come up around that assessment strategy. And these are, once again, the session titles that we're going to have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing screens. If you can bear with me a second, I'm going to jump into sharing our SharePoint so we can have a look at some of our resources.
And sorry, I'm back.
Yeah.
Just, jumping in and out of everything today.
Oh, yeah. Ask away.
No.
Yeah,
Oh, I did have one question just on the slide deck, and
yeah.
I'm not sure if you're connected through to our IAT templates, but we do have IAT standard slide decks as well. So I'll put the link in the chat so you've got those, but we would need them on that IAT branding.
Oh, awesome. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll update before I share it onto that branding. So this on the SharePoint, you've got access to our product plan as well, which you may find helpful in understanding the product further, because it sort of gives you the background to how it was built with the topic areas and the learning outcomes, and then diving into each part of the product development. So I think that is a really useful resource to have a look at. And I'll jump into, with the session plans, there are PowerPoints that support each session as well. And these do have a nice branding to it. So that's really good to see. So you can see we've got one there for communicate with influence. And we've got an acknowledgement of country. We then look at, general housekeeping. So you'll see this consistent feel through the PowerPoints. And then we've got what you're going to actually do by the end of the session. So why do frontline leaders need to communicate with influence? And how can you, as a frontline leader in communication, develop the skills necessary to communicate with influence in your workplace? So that's what we're going to be focusing on in the session. So we've got active listening, and you can see there, these are some instructions to an activity. So it's really good. They're doing their online learning, and it's very self-directed, very immersive. And then they're doing some unstructured learning where they're starting to connect, do some deep thinking, and then we're going into facilitated sessions where they get to actually do some work together. So I think this is quite exciting. So here's an activity in pairs. Practice your active listening skills by completing the following. Speak to your partner about any topic for 30 seconds. While listening to your partner, demonstrate at least one active listening technique. Swap roles so the listener becomes the speaker. Discuss what you observed during this activity together. You have 5 minutes to complete the task. So this also will scaffold the timing of the session as well, and gives them a chance to reflect on what they actually learned in the e-learning. So really crucial to come along to the facilitated sessions to have done that particular e-learning topic and participated in the forum activities. So that's going to be a really important part of supporting our students through their learning journey. Then we're looking at why do we need to communicate effectively. So there's some key points there about how frontline leaders need to communicate with their internal and external stakeholders. Clear communication improves safety, it promotes innovation through exchange of ideas, and there's a legal requirement to make sure all workers and subcontractors are active participants. So that's going to guide your conversation that you have in the instructions that you're giving when you're delivering the session, and this does link into that session plan as well. There's some challenges that we have with communication. There's the benefits of communication. And then here's another activity. And this one, you've got 20 minutes. So how can you develop the knowledge and skills required to communicate with influence? And then they're working in small groups this time. And how can you develop the knowledge skills required to communicate with influence? Make sure you take notes during your discussion. And as this ties in with the facilitator guide, you have the instructions on how to run that activity. Got more resources there. Then we've got assessment practice. As part of your project, you will design and deliver a client presentation. You're invited to share your presentation with a peer or a small group, either to seek feedback or practice the skills of developing a presentation. So what's really important in our students actually developing those skills, they're learning about it in the e-learning, they're starting to reflect, they're coming along, they've done some activities, and now we're going to give them a chance to practice those communication skills, and they can actually get feedback from that as well. And that helps them prepare for their assessment where they're going to be actually giving a presentation. So that's a great practice activity. And then we link back into those forum questions in the facilitated session. And then coming back to the learning outcomes at the end of the session, and thank you. So that's what a PowerPoint will look like. And there's one for each session as well. Okay, so now we're just jumping into the facilitated guide so we can have a look at what this looks like and the session plan for that communication model. Before I do, are there any questions so far? No? Oh, good. Fantastic. Okay. So there is, this is sort of, oh yes, Colin, you've got a question.
Sorry, Jenny.
Sorry.
Colin's got his raised. Okay.
Yeah, sorry to be a pain. I
good.
just noticed one of the activities there because I believe that the first lot's going to be online.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yep. You've got an activity there where they have to talk to their partner. How many breakout rooms do we have or have access to enable them to actually go to, or what's the process of them talking? What's a suggested way of doing that if they're online? Because normally if I'm in Teams, I break them into classes, but there's only so many classes that, you know, I would have access to. So I'm just wondering what approach we take with that then.
I'd be imagining using, oh, you want to answer, Karen? Go. Yeah.
You can if you have the answer. But
I was going to say you could use the breakout rooms function in Teams, and you can actually go in and it's pretty easy to, have you used that one?
I use it all the time. If
Yeah.
it's unless it's done by an invitation to the meeting, and if it's set up as a team where everyone comes in without actually having a meeting invite, you're limited to 3 rooms if you're the person who's actually organising it. Whereas if you send an invitation out, you can actually set up more rooms, I believe. But there's a limit to the number of rooms you can actually have open up at any one time.
okay, I will confirm that. I know Jane Colin, who you know, Jane, she's been working heavily on that. And when we do the Teams training, we'll delve deeper into that as well. So yeah, but thank you for raising it.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's good to that's another good thing about these sessions. Let's get those things out now so we can work through them as well. And the good thing about these resources, that's your framework to work within. So it's finding a way to conduct those activities within whatever context you have or the amount of students. So it gives you a nice framework. So in a facilitator's guide, what you will see is some generic information, some guidance about how to prepare for the delivery, just looking at, you know, things that we've talked about, the 4 e-learning modules, and there's approximately 90 minutes per module. So that's going to be good to actually go through and have a really good read through of this. Assessment strategy, as we've talked about, if there's any particular needs of the students, they'll be listed in there. Your delivery steps, thinking about how the students contact you, and your details are displayed directly. So this is you might have already been looking at these type of things. Then we've got some strategies to help you plan for the delivery, what you need to do before, during, and post-student completion. And then we have a course delivery schedule. So you can see all in one table the different lessons that are going to be happening and what is actually in the content. So I think we've already talked about those. And so you start with an orientation and kickoff session, and then we've got our different topic areas, and then we've got the support session as well. So let's have a look at a couple of the session plans, and if you do have questions, please feel free to jump in, and then we can go over and look at the assessments.
I have a quick
as well.
question.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? I just wanted to ask about the soft skills or the enterprise skills. So do we articulate those in this facilitator's guide as well? And sorry if you've covered it and I've missed it.
Oh no, we haven't talked about that one actually. So I'm going to see if that's actually in our product plan as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a good place.
And
yeah.
just something to think of, and Shavi, I neglected to ask that question of last night's as well, but just keen to see that we have articulated where those soft skills are dropping.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because since we've developed obviously developing these products, we all know we've been on a bit of a journey, and things, even since I've been in the role for 6 months, I've seen a lot of change, and we have actually updated our templates to make sure that they're really clear. Shavi, do you have any comments? I can see you've got your hand up because I'm not sure how we have articulated it here.
Yes, sorry, team. I'm trying to multitask. I needed to pick up my son from school. We had some issues at home. So in terms of the enterprise skills, Kali, we do have a product plan that does map it. So the intent was that we have all of those enterprise skills that we had identified be mapped in the learning outcomes so that it organically then feeds into the learning and the assessments as well. So I think, Jenny, the one that you have actually came from the external. So we have an updated version, which we'll be able to send it across and update that on the folders as well. So that's happening across all of the micro credentials, Kali, that we are trying to map it, and the template iteration that came through at the next level is applied to all of the teaching period 5 onwards.
Okay, great.
In the new.
That's good. Thank you so much.
And I've written that down as an action, Carly and Shavi, so we can make sure that we do provide that to you. Okay, so just jumping back to where I was. Okay, so in the each session plan, we're actually going to have the timing for you, the actual topic area, the key points to be covered, and then any activity details and references, and then any resources. So this product has been designed by an external design company, Strawberry Solutions, and they have actually mapped into those slides that I was showing you in the PowerPoint. So this will actually help you in your preparation and delivery. You can see where each part of the session links into that PowerPoint slide. So this one is an orientation to the micro-credential. So you can see we're doing our acknowledgement of country, our welcome, our session agenda. We've got an icebreaker to get to know you. So we've got allocate once in pairs in breakout rooms, or divide the class into pairs, and encourage the students to ask the partner why they're attending this course and why they're working in construction and what motivates them as learning. So we're building that connection there. And then we're giving an overview of the program, our program schedule. We're looking at the forum questions. So this is a chance to really unpack and promote that collaborative learning and networking as well. So this is a really good opportunity for people to start to build some networks with other leaders in construction. Then we're talking about the assessment that they do in each of the e-learning topics. There's a pre and post knowledge check, and there is case-based questions. So there will be some, when you have a look through, there are some personas there, and then the questions are based around very simple scenario in the knowledge checks there. Then we've got overview of the facilitated sessions. So actually just setting them up, how each of those sessions is going to work. And then just a final check-in to see if they've got any questions. So that is an orientation session. I'm just looking at the timing there. So yeah, I think you've got about 60 minutes allocated around that as well. Then we go into a session plans for each of the topics, and just jump in if you've got questions. Please feel free to ask. If I can't answer anything, I'll find out for you. And this is around, once again, that communication with influence, and we had a look at that PowerPoint to see how that links together as well. So in this one, once again, we've got that familiar start where we're doing acknowledgement of country, the welcome, the overview, and the questions and what's going to be covered. And then we've got the activity around the active listening and instructions there. And why do we need to communicate effectively? And then it tells you to present those parts of the PowerPoint there. And then we're going through to activity number 2, to identify ways that they can develop the skills necessary to communicate effectively as a frontline leader. Yep. Okay. And we're talking about presentation. So asking the students to share their plans with the class, and each group can build upon the work of the group before them and record the main ideas of slide 12 and share with the students at the end of the lesson. And then we've got our, here, assessment practice. And this is about their client presentation. And if the students have not completed a draft of the presentation, advise them to work on it to complete a first draft. So that gives them some opportunities to practice. And then we're going to actually be discussing those forum activities as well. And then we've got some time for reflection. Any questions about that? Okay, so we've got manage personal and professional development, which what we're looking in here is what are the required capabilities for today's leaders? And frontline leaders need to demonstrate technical and people skills. A frontline leader's capabilities include skills, knowledge, experience, qualifications, certifications, and licenses. And then we're giving instructions to present a slide there that relates to this. Is this going into too much detail, or is this helpful to keep going through this? Is this helpful? Yep. Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure I'm sort of covering off what you need. Okay, so what are the required capabilities? The training needs analysis. So we talk about this in the 70-20-10 model, and this builds on what they've covered in the e-learning topic as well. And then we've got an activity where they can select 5 capabilities and this will be used as a basis for their professional development plan as well, which is part of their assessment. So that's good. They can tap into what they're actually doing in their facilitated sessions. Okay, so then there's a presentation. Invite the students to share their plans with the class. Each group can build upon the work of the group before them. So it's good we're going to debrief each activity and keep building upon that. And once again, we're giving people practice actually demonstrating this skill. So I think that's important because this links into communicating with influence. So it's a really good skill to build as a leader and giving them chance to practice and get feedback. Then we're going to cover a personal SWOT analysis, which links into what they did in their e-learning module as well. And then they can actually share and get some feedback on the SWOT analysis. So once again, it's really important that they've completed that in the e-learning. Yeah, Carly.
Thank you so much. One of the questions that we touched on last night was around when our guest speakers are dropping in and the value that they can bring to the conversation. And I was just curious as to in the time frame where our guest speakers are dropping in, and forgive me, Karen, I should know where we're at with guest speakers, but I've got so many different things floating through my head at once. But you know, do we have guest speakers lined up for this one? And you know, what is the briefing for them in this space?
I guess there isn't any briefing. When I was looking at, when we were going through the components of I know Shavi's going to jump in a second, of the micro-credential, that's a space that, well, I'll let Shavi explain. She might explain it better than me. Thanks, Shavi.
Same, just give me a second. Carly, I'm just trying to, team, just give me a second. I'm trying to log back into
ferociously typing. Have you ever watched Sharpie type? She's like,
well, I guess while she's typing, I can say I'm one of the guest speakers for this as well.
bravo.
So what I thought, because I've got the coaching experience, I thought it might link in nicely to that professional development piece, and actually talking about some of that coaching thing, about how they can really identify. So it's just taking that if that fits in with the timing of when you've scheduled it, but I'm happy to be flexible. So I'll put myself in your hands, Karen, to see where you fitted me in, and if you think that there's something better aligned, I'll put a spin into that as well. And then I'll hand over to you, Shavi, to explain that.
Thank you. I think one of the things, Jenny, firstly, thank you so much. I think you're taking us through a great amount of details as well. And I'm hoping Neha and Colin are actually kind of really gaining well from all of the coverage that you've given them. I think in terms of one of the things that I did want to reinforce was that when you do jump into looking at the e-learning content, Colin and Neha, you'll be able to see that there's a lot of contextualization to industry sector. So there are examples, there are scenarios, there are case studies that are pretty rich. Jenny has an absolute expertise in leadership and coaching, not coming from the construction sector. So at times it doesn't flow in when you're kind of having that conversation. So we'll perhaps be encouraging yourselves to go through the e-learning content so that you can get that richness out of it and showcase and demonstrate perhaps those examples back with the students as well, and encourage them to think through what their experiences have been as well. I think that's the whole highlight of our applied learnings here, that going back into that construction setting. So that's one thing that I was wanting to kind of really reinforce. The other piece around guest speakers, Carly, I'm still waiting for CPB to confirm. So I did touch base with Trudy on Monday, and she's only got a few lined up, but we should have a confirmation soon. She's confirmed that they would be available. In terms of the orientation for the guest speaker, I would be running an orientation session for the CPB guest speakers. That was a great two on Monday with Trudy as well, so that they do get a bit of a sense in terms of where we're heading with the topics. I think the other piece is to be able to then align our educators and our guest speakers as well. I think perfect. We saw that happening last night when we had a guest speaker and an educator on the same platform, that if they're going through topics 1 and 2 up until week 4, that the emphasis are, or the focus is around those topics, and the guest speakers then being able to share their experiences and their insights into how they've kind of really developed that. And in terms of having Jenny add value as a guest speaker, I guess I keep going back to a product standard where we had that mentoring, the coaching piece as a critical element there. I think it's going to be really good for someone to kind of really walk the students through that as well. Leadership is all about kind of really nurturing them and growing them as leaders as well. So I think that will be helpful as well.
No, that's great. And do we have the platform? Like, are we in a position to show anything with the platform at this point, or still under development? Yeah.
No, the platform's ready. I was just waiting for Jenny to walk this through. So towards the end of it, I'll showcase the open learning platform.
Okay.
The open learning platform is Friday we're doing.
So we're doing the full training on Friday, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was just about the product, but
okay.
Either way.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine.
Okay. Well, let's see where we land when we have a little bit more discussion. And I think it's really exciting. Like this is the first time we're rolling this out, and the first time we're having guest speakers. And I sort of sorry, I'm a bit of a big picture thinker dreamer, and I think with guest speakers coming in, there could be things that come up in the sessions and you're thinking, oh, it'd be good to have someone else give a different perspective on this, or this is a real hot topic. So I think having that option there, that's why in the components we have the really structured facilitated sessions, and then we've got these, we call them live sessions, so we can do some of this work to really help our students on that learning journey. So I think that's exciting.
And if I can, I know Georgie's commuting, but Georgie, I hope you're thinking of some good questions to ask at the end as well. So feel free, if you've got some, to just come in over the top or whatever you need to do. But we're keen to hear if you've got anything as well. Yeah.
And if you think of stuff later on, you might be reflective, please reach out, because like we're saying, this is all new and we're learning together. So it's going to be exciting that we can actually work together and answer some of those questions that come up, or any concerns, or just anything. Please do reach out. Okay, so we'll keep going with the session plans. I'm just looking at the time, so I'll keep skimming through those, and then we'll look at the assessments as well. Okay, so we come back to the forum questions again. So you can see it's very structured, and there's that similar experience that will be in each session. And then, so we've got our introductions, and then we're looking at the characteristics of a high-performing team. What is a high-performing team? And encourage the students to give examples from their workplace experience in their answers as well, which is really, really good. So this is going to build on that e-learning content as well, and good to share experiences. And then the benefits of the high-performing team. And it's a whole class activity, and they can give examples from their workplace, the responsibilities of frontline leaders. Then we've got tools and approaches. So the tools and approaches used by frontline leaders to establish and manage team dynamics. And then this is another activity. So we're getting them into pairs, and each pair should identify and list the tools, ideas, and approaches frontline leaders use to create high-performing teams. And then the pairs choose one item from the list to discuss their experiences from the perspective of an employer. So they're sort of thinking from that, employer perspective as well. So it's good we're getting them to share and think and build on what they're doing in the e-learning. Then actually sharing that, what they came up with, creating a high-performing team. So now we're going into small groups and building upon the work from the previous activity. The students create a plan for creating a high-performing team. And then we're inviting the students to share their plans with the class, and each group can build upon the work of the group before them. So you can see there's a nice sort of continuity coming through in the sessions, but we're giving them all practice to actually share back from the group as well. So lots of practice around the communication skills. And we're getting them to think about putting things into action. So we're building really good leadership skills. And then we've got our topic 4, which is understanding change. And I was saying at the start, Carly, change is such a big piece in construction industry, and you're going to see that coming through in a lot of our other leadership micro-credentials. So to start with, it's all about understanding, getting your head into that space as a leader. That change, so we've got change management versus project management. So understanding the difference between change management versus project management. And then they're doing a small group activity around that. And then there's some slides to share around that as well. So we're really helping them see some of the differences there. We're looking at change management methods. So we've got the 5 steps in a change management plan, or Cotter's 8 steps. And these are actually in the e-learning topic as well. So we're building on that learning. Then we've got change management and team dynamics, talking about change manager, stakeholders, and impacts. It's a small group activity, and they would be discussing the effects that change can have on a team. And they should be able to clearly identify the relevant stakeholders and provide examples from their own work context as well. So I think that orientation session, when we look at these types of activities, is going to be really important to set them up for how we want them to come prepared to these sessions, thinking about some of those examples, what they see in the workplace, encouraging them to really, what they're learning in the e-learning, to look for that, because they're going to discuss it in these sessions. Then we're going to go and unpack those forum questions again, and then we've just got a bit of time for reflection and summary at the end. And then there's just a few dot points about having a support session, and that, I know you've got that scheduled, and that can actually help unpack any particular topics or help them prepare for their assessments as well. So that's probably a good time to look at the assessment. Shavi, you had a point?
Yeah, Jenny, I was just thinking maybe we just pause for a minute and unshare, and probably have Colin and Neha or anybody else to ask any questions. Just conscious of time, we do have 15 minutes or maybe 14 minutes to go. And if this session or the presentation that you've had has been helpful, because I think we've covered the assessments a few times now. It's about kind of them getting into it. Colin, Neha, open for yourself. Georgie, anyone?
I think that was well covered, Jenny. Thank you.
Oh,
It
good.
gives a good basis of what we're looking at and how the approach is. Yeah, no, pretty good.
Okay.
And there's, I noticed the good thing I noticed you've built in plenty of time for the discussion, the 25 minutes or the
Yeah.
15 minutes after the event. I think that was really important.
Yeah.
So well done.
That's what we want to get them. If you're happy, I can just quickly touch on this project assessment, because I think this will sort of be really important and in actually supporting them through. So I'm just scrolling up to the front. So you can see that we're suggesting for them to allow 3 hours to complete their project assessment. And then we put some suggested timing for each part. There's 2 tasks, and the first task is broken into 2 parts. So for the first task, they need to prepare a presentation and deliver the presentation. So really get to assess those communication skills in both written and verbal communication skills. So we give them some detail and put a time there around 7 to 10 minutes. And they've got to look at, when they're designing their presentation, what's the purpose, put an agenda in there, their team goals for the project. So there's a bit of a scenario for your leadership team in preparing your presentation. Let me just jump back here. I'll put the scenario here. So the scenario is you're a frontline leader working in RBH Holdings, and you're in the initiation phase of a new multi-story residential building project. You're required to support your team with the change in how this project is managed, as you are introducing a new reporting software. The software implementation date will fall midway point of your project. So we've presented a scenario that's about change and the team dynamics. So the idea of doing that is that we can actually assess a few of the learning topics in the one task. So as much as there's a bit of time there for the presentation, we're actually assessing quite a bit of their learning there as well. So we want them to be able to sort of present about how they're going to lead their team through this change and the dynamics that will occur in that change. So they go through and they prepare the presentation. And then we've listed some criteria there so that they can also get the instructions, and then they can go through, and as they're preparing, they've got, this is what I'm going to be assessed against. So this is pretty much your marking criteria, and that will be built into the open learning. So as you're actually marking it, you can mark it, all this criteria will be in open learning as well. So you can see you're looking at how it's organised, the tone of the language that's used in the presentation as well. And then instructions will be in open learning, so they can submit it all through open learning. And then the next piece is for them to deliver and record their presentation. And that's aligned to the presentation that they've done. And once again, we've got some assessment criteria. And then the second task is about developing a professional development plan. And then there is a template provided for that as well. So this will be a pretty good activity because, as you can see from those session plans, they're doing a bit of that work. So this will allow them to really bring all that stuff together, all those activities they're doing and all those insights they're happening. They will be able to actually sort of bring together in a plan. And then they get to rate themselves against 3 current capabilities, and then develop, a plan to address some of their leadership skills. Yeah, Harley.
So I did want to ask the question, and I've had some conversations here and there with a few of the team, but digital had some issues with uploading assessment tasks in some cases to the LMS into open learning. And I just wanted to check what the contingency plan is if they aren't able to upload, especially if they're recording themselves doing a video. It'll be quite a large file. So just to have a contingency ourselves in that space as well, so that we're not caught midway through and trying to fix it and scrambling.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and this is something we have checked with. I know Shavi's going to jump in as well with Neil and Samar, that the the file size they've said will be fine for that length of recording. Shavi, did you want to add something to that? Because I think it's such a great question.
No, Jenny, you've covered that
Yeah.
all. So Carly Neal's confirmed that each student will be given an allocation per task. And when we covered off these tasks with them, he said this is piece of cake. They should be fine with it. We have enough storage capacity for them.
Yeah, it's probably like with the IoT or that, I don't know, data technology that takes up a lot of space, I think. So I think we're a bit fortunate. So cool. And Colin, you have a question.
Oh, it wasn't a question so much as that, but if it's recorded in Teams, it's an automatic download, which makes it really easy and puts in a good format. So that may be one solution there if it doesn't fit.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? Neha, did you have any questions or comments or concerns?
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Jenny. It's been covered so well. Everything was very much into the details. That's the best part I like about the whole session. Probably like not at this stage, but I was just thinking like the session plans we have broken down, like that's really good. But in practicality, I'm not really sure, like, especially when we run through Teams or Zoom, it's just my personal experience. It's a little bit, sometimes it's quite harder to engage the learners and keep them on the track. So probably like, the best thing, like we're going to trial on this session plan and we will provide you the feedback as an educator. And then probably like in the later stage, we might need to customize it and all those stuffs, like, but so far it looks absolutely awesome to me. It's really good.
I love what you're saying. And I think this is what's really exciting. Like it's the first time and we get to see how it goes and then we can improve it.
Yes,
and I think
definitely,
that's,
like, yeah, so
that's
far
exciting.
absolutely it's good to me because sometimes like when especially learners start interacting, it's really hard them to cut them down in the middle because that's the whole purpose, like, to keep them engaged, to involve them. So
Yeah.
no, but so far it's absolutely awesome. I really like it. Thank you.
Oh, great. That's good to hear. And I think this is what's exciting about us collaborating together to go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, how can we improve it, so we can collaborate and make sure that we are like listening to your feedback. So your feedback is going to be so important and then we'll be able to make improvements. So I think that's exciting. Shavi, did you want to add something?
Yes, thanks, Jenny. Neha, thank you so much for the feedback. I think one of the things that we do need to be mindful is, team, that the facilitator guide, the session plans, the PowerPoint are supporting documents for our educators, for yourselves. They are guides there for your reference. So if you do feel that you walked into a session where you want to adapt something or adopt a different approach, feel free to use your flair. We are absolutely leaning on your skills and expertise as educators to lead those conversations and make sure that the students are really set up well for success and they do really have that successful outcome in completing their assessments as well. So up to you to chop and change as well. Like it's clearly sitting there as just as guide or reference points for yourselves. So, and after that, if you feel that there is a need for us to kind of improve on it, more than welcome to hear your feedback and then act on it as well.
Oh, Carly.
That's a nice segue to what I was going to say about feedback. So I am just popping in the link, our continuous improvement register. And we talked about that at the onboarding as well. So everyone has